I am sat here for the first Beyond Human Stories Restorying Life podcast, which I'm very excited about, with my dear friend Jude Currivan. Jude, I would be here all day if I was tried to explain who and what you are and how you show up in the world, but it's an incredible, incredible wisdom keeper, author, cosmologist, archaeologist. You will have to check her out in links to discover her vastness. But thank you so much, Jude, for being the person with which I launched this offering out into the world with.
Oh, bless you, sweetheart. It's my pleasure and delight that we're doing this. Thank you.
I have a feeling, knowing the two of us, this will be one of many. So watch this space. Jude and I have discovered we can talk all day about cosmology, mythology, the emerging story on Earth. So we'll attempt to keep this first one tight and see where we go.
See where we go.
But we are sat here in your beautiful home in the landscape where we both live, actually in Wiltshire. And it's a gloriously sunny winter day, very crisp outside. And we were just over tea before we came together to record this, talking about life's pauses.
And the need for the balance of the in-breath and the out-breath, because we were saying, weren't we, we both had an amazingly busy year.
Yeah.
And we are now moving into the solstice period and Christmas and all of that wonderful time. And at the moment, Mercury is retrograde also. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to take an in-breath and go within. And I used to do workshops and working with people experientially on breathing. And we did a funny exercise where I said to folks, well, take a really big breath out and a tiny in-breath. How does it feel? Take a tiny out-breath and a big in-breath. How does it feel? Oh, no. And then take a balanced out-breath and in-breath. Of course, that's the one that when we think about it and acknowledge it is the one that supports our well-being. And yet, I know both of us have rushed like crazy this year. So actually now taking the in-breath is really important.
Oh yes, absolutely, and especially with most of the people that I end up working with and talking to, this dis-ease of busyness and overwhelm, and everybody seems to be so time poor, and yet we're resource rich in so many ways, especially in this part of the world, and so this ability to interrupt that story in little ways, whether it's in the moment through our breath, or actually whether it's in the season, which we were also talking about.
Absolutely.
The season of winter. So many people I know go, oh, it's winter, it's cold, it's depressing, and yet actually to restory that, I look forward to winter.
We both do. And I think the other thing as well is to remember that, I was in business for many years, and busyness for many years. And what I found when I moved beyond that, and I probably worked longer hours than I ever did.
Absolutely.
But this thing of when we do take an in-breath, I don't know about you, Jen, but I gain far greater clarity. So the busyness, the running around, looking at three things when actually I really only need to focus on one. In the out-breath, that just go. But on the in-breath, there is that sense of gaining clarity and focus and where to move for the greatest effectiveness. And that has helped me through the last 20 odd years, gain that, but also be more time rich.
Yes, in fact, and I'm hearing, the word clarity, it's this. If anyone was to put their Santa list together, I think so many people right now would put clarity on the top of it, because actually it is a confusing time in the world right now. Of course, with confusion comes opportunity. So lots of people are starting to question the dominant stories by which we've lived in, and that is disorientating. That can be scary, and it can feel like, I have so much energy and so much willing, but I don't know where to start and I don't know where to turn, and it is very noisy right now,
It is very, very noisy, and then it means an even greater need for us to take that in-breath and not wait like we've been running around for several months, but actually to take it on an ongoing basis. I mean, when I am home, I try to take a good half an hour in the day just to be quiet, longer if I can manage it, but just to do that in-breath. And it's quite amazing the level of clarity that comes through often in that time. So very much echo your sense of this.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's this whole idea of the different seasons of our lives, and how, in a way, being quiet fuels our ability to move into the busier stages of spring and summer, even the harvest and the autumn, but with far more effectiveness, far more balance, far more poise, and far more authenticity, actually.
It does, it very much all of that. And I also feel that when we are busy, we sense an urgency. Whereas when we're able to balance that in-breath and out-breath and go with the as you say, the cycles and the spirals, we're in the flow, far more of those. And we can consciously align ourselves with the flow. And it's a bit like a river, a river sometimes is quite slow moving and sometimes is rushing over rocks. But if you're with the flow of the river, you can deal with all of that. But if you're not, then you're either fighting the flow of the river or you're being dragged by the river or whatever. So this all aligns us more easily with the currents that are underway at the moment, and they're strong currents.
Yes, it's very true. And what I love about your work, so in your recent book, The Cosmic Hologram, which I know is you've been in that busy flow with all year, travelling around and really bringing that work to people across the world, which is incredible. I think what that does is it adds science and, in a way, a very grounded approach to these pauses, to the flow, to everything we've just been talking about. Because I think, sometimes this can sound quite, it can sound new agey, it can sound esoteric, it can sound very, in a way, hard to grasp, because people go, in an ideal world, I would love to do that, actually, and I get flow and I get all this, but how do you actually do that in the moment? And so what I love about your work is you say, yes, I hear you, and here's all the science that sits behind the flow. And that was my question, so here's how I went about answering it. So how would you, in cosmic hologram terms, describe that process of flow and really tapping into flow on a molecular level?
Oh my goodness!
I know that's a wormhole question.
It is a wormhole question, but you're absolutely right. I wrote the book because I felt that with all the sort of impulses in our world at the moment, they weren't really landing for a majority of folks. A majority of folks still experience the appearance of the world with its apparent separation and all of that drives from that. Because when we see things as being separate, they're in, polarity with us. So we see the outer world and we see ourselves within that, and what do we have to do to survive and to thrive, and it's all about busyness. But that appearance, as you and I both know, is not the underlying reality. But when we buy into that illusion or appearance of separation and materialism as the only sort of reality, then everything that we've been talking about flows from that. We're in the rapids all the time, we're running around, there is the confusion. So I wrote the book because at last, finally, science has caught up with, perennial wisdom, universal spiritual experiences. And it's revealing something that I think is transformational for all of us, which is that the appearance of reality is not its fundamental nature. And when we look at separation, the reality is actually not separate, that it is profoundly interconnected. We are all, and the entire universe are profoundly interconnected. And more than that actually even more deeply, that reality is not duality, it is unity, it is unified, and then diverse, and then differentiated. But what that means, when we really dive deep into it, is that flow is natural within that. Connectivity is natural within that. peace is natural within that. When we turn round from seeing separation to actually seeing the underlying unity and the wonderful diversity that emerges from it, we're in a very different perspective of how we view not just the outer appearance of the world, but the inner knowingness of the world and our own place in it. So things like perceptions such as flow, perceptions such as always having enough time, perceptions about taking that in-breath and that out-breath, living our lives, embodying that unity awareness, is something that, the mystics of all traditions have searched for through the ages. But I actually think we're modern mystics now. We can be modern mystics now, living in the world. We don't have to go up a mountain to do this. When we understand the unified nature of reality, we can live it in a way that benefits us, our families, our relationships, and our relationship with planet Earth and the whole cosmos.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that's where our work is very aligned with many of the people in our wonderful family, which is, the time of retreating from the world is done.
It's done.
And I don't know if you actually could, even if you wanted to. It'd be pretty tricky in this current global civilization in which we live. So actually what we're being called to do, I believe, is take these pauses, remember and restore and reconnect to our authentic piece in that human puzzle, and then come back into the world restored and in restoring as we speak, but taking action with that. We're story making instead of just storytelling, which I think for me is the difference between the kind of ancient and the modern mystics. I think modern mystics make stories. We're out there doing it and living it to the best of our abilities, of course, versus the old kind of guru teacher archetype, which is also fast fading from the world. So I think what people need is permission to step into that journey and that adventure, and people to walk with, actually.
Completely agree. I mean, one of the things that I think we've both found over this last year and are really excited about for the coming year is how many, not just individuals, but organisations, groups of folks are holding hands now to walk this forward together. And the other thing that we've talked about is sharing our stories.
Yes.
Because so many people have had what they would consider extraordinary experiences, looking under the appearance of reality, of physical reality, and seeing the deeper truths of it, and are coming forward and sharing those stories and realising that they, this is the extraordinary in the ordinary, and actually the ordinary in the extraordinary.
Yes.
It's bringing it all into that integration and that lived experience of unity.
Yes, I talk about everyday magic a lot, which is that rediscovery of the world is magic. It really is. And yet actually there's a hard, grounded, credible science as to why it's magic now, which is even more magical and exciting. And there's ways that we can literally hack into our old stories and create that feeling of interconnection, and our own creatorship within that, so our own empowered ability to literally live the life we wish to live and to hold that space for our families and our communities. And I know one of the things we've been exploring recently is this almost tripartite way of looking at that everyday magic, which is the idea of thinking cosmic.
Yes.
In the grand cycles of time and evolution that we have an honour to be a part of right now, and feeling global, really feeling our inherent connection to all of our human and our more than human family on this incredible ecosystem of Earth, but then acting local. Because I think, again, this idea of overwhelm and who, me, and I can't affect change, and this thing that we all do in our own human way, this idea of taking local action in our day-to-day lives, which is where we began the conversation, actually then feeds all the way up into that beautiful nested story hierarchy.
It is nested. I love that word nested, because it holds us, it nurtures us, and the thing that you're saying about the science really now, and as I write in the Cosmic Hologram, has caught up to reveal this, so we can think cosmically in a really connected, profoundly related way, and then bring it down. Our technologies allow us and enable us and hold us in feeling globally.
Yes.
And then bring it down to the everyday, wherever we touch, wherever we are, acting those hands, that purpose, playing that out locally, because it does scale up, scale down. That's one of the wonderful things. It's why I called the book The Cosmic Hologram, because it's, the patterns of reality scale up and scale down. So what we do by acting locally and the interconnectedness, that radiates from that local action and scales up and scales down, often in ways we have no idea, but it does. And so it interconnects in subtle levels, in very practical levels, in wonderful levels, and that is the everyday magic that I think is unfolding.
It's really interesting. So I'm getting a story coming through. It's always nice to kind of give people live examples from our lives, right, in terms of how this plays out. And so there was one that I had in the last year or so where, as you know, I go to and from Egypt a lot, and that's an incredible, special place for both of us. And so when I first went there a few years ago now, I met Hassan, who I now call my cosmic brother, who the first time we actually looked into each other's eyes, we just started to cry. We had no idea why, it's like, what is this? I haven't had this before. And so we have a very deep and magical connection. So cosmically, we've known that, we're coming back together now to hold people in that land in very specific ways. Yeah, that's very grand, that's very big. It's very hard to see how that translates on a local level. Sure. And yet a year or so ago, so he runs a tour company, and he had a car. And I woke up one day and I just had this feeling. It wasn't a bad feeling, but a feeling something was happening. Something was happening, and so I was reaching out to him again via the technology on my phone. I was messaging our friends of what's happening, something's going on. About 45 minutes later, I received a message from our shared friend who said, "You've got to call Hassan now. His car's just burst into flames on the driveway." And you've got to bear in mind, this is his only mechanism of income. It's his only, form of actually feeding his family in many ways. So this was a big thing. So I didn't manage to get a hold of him until the following day, but it was interesting, that knowingness, feeling global on the inside, and then on the outside, this ability to instantaneously connect and find out what was happening.
Exactly.
And so, we again said everything happens for a reason, that this is a catalyst for something, and then over the following 6 months, a community of people rallied round, gathered money, gathered help. His uncle just gifted him the loan of a car for a period of time, and we pretty much gathered the resources on a local level so that now he has a new minibus, he has a new lease of life in the business, he can do different things that he didn't do before. So it was just that, that awareness that hadn't hit me until we're talking about it today, but that whole, from something that could be quite a cosmic relationship down to a very local level of actually reinvigorating a family and a community and a business. That's how we're operating right now. That is everyday magic right there.
It is, and I feel that's how we're going to accelerate how that is, because I felt this year I've been describing how this year as we've all begun to hold hands across the world and have this think cosmic, feel global, how these seeds of local action have just been nurtured and growing. And we've been talking a lot, I know, you and I and lots of folks, about imaginal cells, and this idea of, when the old caterpillar is ready to sort of relinquish its role, and the butterfly is beginning to grow imaginal cells of its possibility, and the imaginal cells then start to cluster together and going forward. And I just get that sense of this. And in a way, the imaginal cells are the local actions that then become global as we move forward, and the butterfly's ready to, you know, come out of the cocoon and fly. And the other analogy that I love, which is again relates to our beloved planet Earth, Gaia, is this idea of the roots of trees, the mycelium, the fungi, this network that coat the roots and communicate and grow and join. And I have the sense of that happening more and more and more. And if you think each little root, each little mycelium is acting locally, but they're reaching out and connecting, and this whole amazing forest of possibility is emerging.
Love that. The forest of possibility. That's a beautiful, beautiful image, isn't it? It's funny, I think for years and years in my work with various different Indigenous people across the world, in every different culture that I touch on, they all talk about these circles of unity all over the world, you know, and then the circles joining the other circles and the other circles. And I'm looking at the rug we're actually sat on right now, and it really is that. It's this mandala of just these ever-expanding, you know, holons of circles of people joining together. But it starts here. It starts with you taking an in-breath. It starts with you reaching out to someone in your family, in your community. It starts with these very localized collective actions that then feed the in-breath and out-breath of the entire system.
I love it. And the other thing that I know we've been touching on as part of that is, and I think this last year has really shown us, there's no they, really. It's just us.
Absolutely.
And so when we get a call, whatever it may be, however small it may be, is to answer that call and show up and act local and do that. You know, there's no they. Ultimately, there's no they. And certainly as we do really move into understanding and experiencing and embodying unity awareness, we realise there is the unique me's and the diverse we's, but we're all together in the oneness and the wholeness. So it's really for us all. When we have that in-breath and you go, oh, I could do this, or I feel the urge to, is do it. Do it. And then reach out and see where it goes.
You know? Yeah, absolutely. I think it's Joseph Campbell, one of his beautiful quotes, which prompted me to write my book about restoring, is the biggest question is whether you're going to say yes to your adventure. And I found those yeses come in every single moment.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Or yay, as we say a lot.
We do say that a lot. Oh, thank you, Jude. I think that's a wonderful place and an invitation through which to end this particular recording, but I can guarantee you'll be hearing more from both of us. So thank you so much for being my friend, being my mentor, being someone I walk with through the yes of this life.
Bless you, Jen, and wholeheartedly yes to all of that with you. Thank you.